Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of 5 Facts. I'm Tony Southcott and we're here to talk about Leprechaun. At the beginning of 1993, Mark Jones brought us one of the strangest but also longest running horror series of all time. He brought us Leprechaun with Warwick Davis. While it's often slapstick and a little bit low-rent horror, there's an undeniable charm to these movies for how terrible they absolutely are. I'm never going to defend and say that these are legitimately good movies, only that they're a lot of fun to watch. It's a perfect mix of comedy, brutality, and just being completely over the top, and I think you guys, if you haven't seen it, would have a lot of fun with it. The first movie's a little bit slower, but the series is just so bizarre that you can have a lot of fun just getting deep into that one. Anyway, let's get to the facts. Fact number 1. General Mills cereal was not a fan of this film. Originally, General Mills had given the rights to use Lucky Charms in this film, but after seeing the results, they decided that it wasn't in their best interest to allow this to happen. This was particularly difficult because the movie didn't have a whole lot of budget to do reshoots. Quickly, they cobbled together a new cereal box called Lucky Clovers. It's an obvious ripoff, but it was enough that they were still able to get the scene into this film. However, because of this whole debacle, they were able to add one of the most memorable lines to the entire film. When the youngest protagonist ends up shooting at the leprechaun with a wad of gum and a 4-leaf clover, he yells out, "Fuck you, Lucky Charms." And it just basically encapsulated their whole little argument. This was done in post as a direct result of General Mills not allowing them to use the cereal. Fact number 2. This isn't the only time that Warwick Davis played a leprechaun. Warwick Davis has played everything from Ewoks to fantasy heroes to just all sorts of different things, a lot involving a fair amount of prosthetics and some just him being him. In 1998, a very unlucky leprechaun hit theaters, and basically it's the inverse of this movie. It's about a leprechaun that likes to play with children. There are a few odd moments where he's using magic and you can hear that cadence of the traditional leprechaun coming through, and it's a little bit funny to see just because you know it's the same guy. Some people have tried to canonize this as a prequel to the current Leprechaun movies. Oddly enough, Leprechaun was supposed to be more of a kids type of horror movie. It wasn't until they were actually making the film that they decided to torque up the violence and just make it a little bit more brutal. You can even see some of the childish parts coming through with characters like Ozzy and just some of the others where it looks like it was more geared towards kids, especially with some of the ways that it was shot, and the horror aspect was just amplified during shooting. Fact number 3. It took more than 3 hours to get Warwick Davis set up as the leprechaun with the special effects makeup. Every day Warwick Davis had to go through 3 hours of makeup to get into his character. It was a long and arduous process, one where he basically had to sit there, and they said that he was a little bit more trapped than the average actor because the chairs were so high that he really couldn't do anything about it. He has the utmost respect for special effects people, especially because they can actually do all this while he's trying to eat toast and do all these other things. The longest one he worked on was actually Harry Potter, which took about 4 hours, but he was a much smaller role in those movies, so it was quite a few less days. During an interview while he was getting in costume, he looked at the camera and, with a smile on his face, said, "Behind this mask is a serious thespian, and I'm desperately looking for work that can get me out of this chair." So, he definitely is willing to go through and put in the effort, but it's a little bit of a troublesome thing, especially considering there are 6 of these Leprechaun movies. One of the best aspects of the makeup, though, is that it allowed the stunt doubles to look exactly like him. The only thing you'd notice in some scenes is that the stunt double is a little bit taller, a little bit thinner, and that's because Tony Cox, who played in Bad Santa, did a lot of the stunt work, as did Deep Roy, who did all the Oompa Loompas in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They are a little bit more mobile than Warwick Davis is, so whenever he's on top of the car or he's trying to do some things that he wouldn't normally be able to do, such as running full sprint after somebody, they were able to come in and help out. Fact number 4. Warwick Davis originally hated working on this film. During the course of filming, Warwick Davis regretted taking on this role. He felt that it was going to be a flop, that it was too campy, that it didn't know what it was trying to be. When he saw how well it did and how this new crowd of fans had really responded well to the Leprechaun character, he actually started to like it, and it's become one of his favorite film series that he's ever worked in. He's a consummate professional, though, and in this first movie you can tell that he's putting his all into it. Some of the other performances are a little bit weaker, and he is just going all out to make this character thrive. Fact number 5. The sequels have gotten a little bit out of hand. Because Leprechaun did so well, earning about $9 million on its $900,000 budget, they immediately went into Leprechaun 2. It's a little bit more of a standard sequel. It's set in LA, and there's not a whole lot that's completely different about it. Leprechaun 3 starts getting weird whenever he's in Las Vegas. You can imagine someone who's in love with gold would absolutely love Vegas. You see him dancing with random Elvises. You see all sorts of weird stuff happening. Leprechaun 4, on the other hand, goes to space. It's a far future type setup, and the first time we see the Leprechaun, he's trying to seduce a space princess who is just like absolutely gorgeous blonde model who is in love with gems and money and all this other stuff. So he's working on seducing her whenever a team of like SWAT people come in, and he literally uses a green lightsaber to cut people up. It's a bizarre movie, like one of the strangest things that I've ever witnessed. So definitely, if you watch none others from this, at least look up the trailer or some of the clips from Leprechaun 4, because that is absolutely bizarre. Leprechaun 5, though, is my absolute favorite movie of this entire series, and that's Leprechaun into Hood. And that one we have Ice-T as the main bad guy, and it's such a bizarre movie, and I'm pretty sure he speaks in rhyme the whole time. At the end of the movie, he's breaking out in a full-on rap, and I don't know what it was about that movie, but I was laughing the whole time, and I thought it was great. Like, I'm pretty sure it's about how these people steal his flute, and he's going to get it back. It's not just about the pot of gold this time. Coolio's in it to give it that, like, full-on mid-90s feel, and really, like, it's one of the best of the series, even though it's terrible. When it goes back to the Hood for the second one, not quite as good. But it's just a fascinating series. More recently, the series was actually given a dark and gritty reboot, though I don't know a soul who's seen it. Apparently it's done by WWE Studios, and one of the WWE wrestlers is the Leprechaun in this one. To me, he looks more like an orc. It's not quite like... It doesn't have any of the real feel of these movies or any of the charm, so you could probably skip that one. Leprechaun is a movie with a very unique charm. It's obviously not meant to be taken seriously. It's more akin to films like The Gremlins, and just several others from this era that were pseudo-horror movies. Warwick Davis is perfect as the Leprechaun. He does such a great job with the inflection, putting expression through this face that really shouldn't allow very much because of all the foam latex and everything else that was used on this. It's just such an odd movie, and I don't know why I love it, but I do. And I think that this series is really worth checking out, especially if you guys are kind of into the campiness. Also, it's kind of cool to look back and see Jennifer Aniston's very first movie. Like, back in '93, she was completely unknown and would go on to be in Friends and tons of other movies. And it's just cool seeing her in this and seeing her so young. Anyway, if you're in the mood to see a leprechaun bounce over and puncture somebody's lungs with a pogo stick, as well as drop weird rhymes, and just generally get up to some mayhem, this is a movie you should look at. It's available on a lot of different streaming platforms for like $4, so it's not a big deal to jump into. It's not an Oscar winner, but it's definitely something that'll make you smile, and probably make you facepalm a few times. Please tell me in the comments below things that you liked about this particular movie or this series. Like, if you enjoy Leprechaun, let me know. If you think I'm an idiot for liking it, be a little bit nice about it and say so in the comments. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button, check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/humanechoes, and support us if you feel it. Anyway, I hope you guys have an awesome week. We will be back with more 5 Facts.